Good morning, lads and lassies. I'm putting on my radio voice. How is everybody this morning? I am what I would describe as stiff at the moment. So you obviously read the... Whoa, I made myself really big on the screen there. You obviously read the title of this video. Yes, I did crash my motorbike last night. Again, I should say, and I know if Mrs. Demon was here right now, she'd be like, remember to say again, because I have done that a few times before. Hold on, I just realized I forgot to put my side light on here, so the old studio behind me isn't lit properly, because it's a real studio, of course. Like, I would never use a green screen like NASA. Whoa, that's bright. I'm gonna get a tan from that one. All right, that's a bit better. So yeah, last night I had you could call it a low speed crash, but it was much more of a almost no speed crash, to be quite honest. So just to explain how it all happened and what I learned from it, more importantly, is last night it was raining really heavy. It was windy, stormy, horrible weather. The kind of weather that you would say, probably not best to go out on a motorcycle. And I would agree with you. And I generally avoid very heavy weather. Now, the reason I chose to go out last night is purely to practice. Because as you guys know, in a few days, at the middle of next week, I have got this like advanced riding test. And it's like so you do the first level and then you go up to the next level. I have to do that to be able to ride my bike back in Ireland because it's the only license that they will transfer from me legally, basically. So I have to do the test, simple as that. And so I decided I'd go out, I'd practice and, you know, get my shit together. And I tend to go and practice every night for the most part. And I chose to go last night despite the weather being bad because I felt like that's what I needed to do because the weather is due to be really, really bad on the day of my test anyway. So I figured, let's go out, let's, you know, do some low speed practice in the rain because I checked the weather for the day of my test and it's going to be, I think it's 80% chance of precipitation. So I figured may as well practice in the rain now. There's a common misconception when people ride motorcycles or drive cars, for that matter, that rain equals no traction. That is not necessarily the case at all. In fact, the reduction in traction in just regular rainy conditions on a regular road is not a whole lot, to be honest. As in the physical reduction in traction. Nothing compared to obviously like ice is a different story. Ice in a motorbike don't mix at all. Ice in a car don't mix. Ice in a motorbike definitely don't mix. From personal experience, hit a patch of black ice once and really messed myself up. But anyway, I decided to go out to practice because I knew that I was going to end up doing my test in the rain. So it was nothing necessarily to do with the reduction in grip. And just to clarify, I'm not saying there is no reduction in grip. There definitely is. So make sure you got good tires, etc. But not compared to what your brain seems to think. So, for example, your emergency stopping distance is extended in wet conditions, which is good. They give you more chance. And my bike has ABS and all that stuff, so I'm not worried about that. But one of the things that seems like a very simple part of the test, but is actually one of the trickier bits, just mentally and in some respects physically, is the low speed maneuvering parts of the test. The tests here in Australia have, and in the UK as well actually, have moved a lot more towards your low speed capabilities than your highway speed capabilities. Most people will be able to ride a motorcycle pretty safely at high speed, or not high speed, but at motorway speed or freeway speed because you're just generally moving in a straight line with kind of minor bends, you know, all that kind of stuff. There are obviously more issues with speed, but there are also, when you look at low speed situations in around a town or city, or bad roads, for example, that's where you're most likely to have some kind of an incident, shall we say. We tend not to say accident, because accident would imply that there's nobody at fault. And I was kind of at fault in some respects, and then in other ways not so much. But at low speed, the thing is, controlling a bike, especially a heavy bike, at low speed takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of effort, mentally and physically. Doing that in the rain is even harder. And the reason riding in the rain here in Australia is tough. First of all, there's a ton of surface water. There's not a lot of drainage here, because obviously it only rains a few days of the year. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, and this is no disrespect to my beautiful Australian friends, Australian drivers are generally pretty shit anyway. In the rain, they turn into complete, I won't say the word, looters, we'll say. They just seem to lose the ability to concentrate when it rains here. And it's because it's alien to them, and that's fine, I get that. But as a motorcyclist, it becomes increasingly dangerous when it rains, not because of the grip, but because of other drivers not looking where they're going and all sorts of stuff. The other thing is the oil slicks on the road. Once water hits that, it becomes very dangerous. So the U-turns, so literally just doing like figures of 8, figures of O, figures of U turns, can be difficult actually if it's not. So if you've ridden for many years, and I rode for a long time in Ireland, I would consider myself a fairly proficient rider. I didn't know how much I didn't know until I had to practice for this test. I really and truly, it was humbling to realize how badly I was riding for so long. I could have gotten away with it, and most people do for most of their lives, and that's fine. But I didn't realize these little tiny things that I could do to make my riding much safer for me and others. And yeah, it was quite humbling. But anyway, to what happened. So last night it was raining. So the rain had stopped at this point. And one of the difficulties riding in the rain as well, especially doing low speed maneuvers, is visibility. So your visor gets all fogged up. First of all, that's the first thing. It's a pain in the ass. If you lift your visor up, the rain goes in your eyes, and that can make it difficult. If you leave the visor down and the vents open, the rain goes on the visor, and you can't see shit anyway. So at low speed, it's even worse. It is even worse because it's the rain is sitting on your visor. If you're moving at over 30 or 40 kilometers per hour, the water's being pushed off your visor, and that's fine, right? So, it's no big deal. But at 2 or 3 kilometers per hour, when you're doing the low speed maneuvers, it becomes really, really difficult. So I decided, right, let's get out practice in the rain, in the dark, and make the conditions as hard as possible for me to ride in, so that when the day comes, I'll be ready. And the only thing that will throw me off is other drivers. And that, unfortunately, in Perth, I see somebody mention they live in Perth. Adam, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Adam. Perth drivers in the rain are a disaster. They are a disaster, and it's no fault of their own. They're just not used to driving in the rain, and it freaks a lot of them out. Now, Adam, you'll know the area I'm talking about. It is Subiaco, which is in the western suburbs of our fair city. It's a more kind of affluent area, and the driving there is atrocious. Not fast, just bad. We call them Valium drivers. Basically, just no awareness whatsoever, pulling out in front of people, and it's quite tight as well, the roads there, so there's no room for error. So that's something I was a little bit worried about, but anyway. So last night I'm riding around with my mate, because I have to, on that bike, I have to be accompanied. Because I'm not licensed to ride that class of bike on my own. So he's out with me. He's a fantastic rider. He's a real pro, and he's actually a riding trainer, not for the road though, for racing. So he has to switch off his racing brain when it comes to choosing lines and stuff like that. But anyway, so it was about 1 or 2 blocks away from my house, and I was going around the corner at about, I'd say 5 or 6 kilometers per hour. The reason we chose that specific corner was because it was on an awkward gradient. The camber is all awkward, and that is exactly what the road conditions are like over in West Perth, where I'm going to be taking my test. And as I was turning around that corner from the inside to the inside, which you have to do, unless, of course, there's an obvious, boundary in your way, like a fallen branch or a person, for example, or a car. So as I'm coming around the corner, you never touch your front brake really when you're steering. It's generally not a good idea. You drag your back brake because it keeps the bike more stable. If you touch your front brake in a turn, and the mechanics of this, the physics of it, a lot of you might even understand from riding bicycles. If you touch that front brake in a turn at low speed, you're just going to dump the bike. It's as simple as that. Now, at very, very low speed, like walking pace, that's not a big deal. You drop the bike, you might have scratched your bike and scratched your pride a little bit, but you're usually able to just pick the bike back up and hop back on, and it's no big deal. A lot of modern bikes especially have tip sensors, so once you go over and fall down, the tip sensor trips. Sometimes they get stuck, and yeah, it's a pain in the ass. So anyway, I'm coming down, and it's so the way the turn is, it's kind of going downhill a little bit and around and back uphill to the right. Not quite a hairpin, but like a V kind of. And I was in front, and I came around the corner, and I realized at that point, first of all, I was in the wrong gear. So I was in first gear. I don't know why. I don't know why my brain kept myself in first gear. The bike I was riding is not crazy powerful, but it's much more powerful than my bike. And so first gear is not a good idea on that bike. My bike is only a 250. It's gutless. So I'm like in first gear most of the time. And as I was coming down around the corner, I realized I was going just a little bit too slow. And so I just gave her just a little touch of gas. Just tickle the gas just a little bit. And on a bike like that, arse end came out. Bike went sliding down the road. And I went with it, basically. And so how I actually ended up falling off was I made the grave error of touching the front brake as I was going around the corner. So I thought it was giving the gas that made the back end shoot out and I was gone, but it wasn't. It was me touching the front brake. And it's like an automatic thing that you do. You know that makes you stop, and when you're in an uncomfortable position, you just likely to pull the front brake, get a handful of it, and go arse over tit. And that's what happened. So I hurt this hand. Now, here's the weird thing. So I fell down on my right side, and I slid about maybe 3-4 meters. Nothing major. The bike was completely fine, unscratched. How so, I hear you ask? After tipping it over at about, maybe 10 kilometers, maybe 15 kilometers per hour. I'd say it was the maximum speed. And basically, I slid, and the whole bike's weight was on my right knee, and used my knee as a kind of a skid. So by the time my mate got up behind me and jumped off his bike, I had already picked it up. I had already picked the bike up, and I was kind of just like, I checked the bike's fine, no scratches, no damage. Oh wait, there was one little bit of damage, and that was that the brake lever, little ball thing at the end of it fell off. That was the only damage, not a scratch otherwise. And then I was looking at myself, I was like, I seem fine. I'm like, my boot came off, which was weird because they're like expensive riding boots that should not have come off, and they were on real good. And like, I'm not an ACGAC guy, which is the all the gear all the time guy, to be honest. And I know that's probably not responsible, but then again, riding a motorcycle generally isn't responsible. So, it's kind of like, if I'm nipping up to the shop, I know it's one of the 7 deadly sins of riding. I just throw on my helmet, and most of the time I throw on my motorbike jacket, or I have like a Kevlar shirt I stick on, and I just nip up to the shop and come back, and that's it. But the weirdest part about it, the weirdest thing was, I thought I re-bent my finger. I was looking at it, I was like, holy shit, that's more bent than usual, this one. But it's not. It's not. I think I was overreacting. So anyway, I picked up the bike. The bike was still running, actually. It didn't turn off, which is weird. Usually that particular bike does, but it didn't. And so I jumped back up and, you know, I just gave it a check, rolled it around a little bit, make sure it was fine. Bike was fine. I was fine. And, you know, I was like, all right, let's just keep going. So we kept riding, kept practicing U-turns, doing figure eights, going in and out of cones, just the usual shit. And then we decided we would do some emergency braking, because that's the most daunting part for me for some reason of the test in the rain, for obvious reasons. But the bike has ABS, so I don't really need to worry about it. So, so as I'm driving along, I did my emergency stop, and then I started to feel the pain. The adrenaline kind of wore off at this point. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, now I'm starting to feel a little bit of pain. And where I was feeling a bit of pain was in this finger that I thought I bent. That's why I thought I bent it more when I look back at it afterwards. But I think it was actually just from the cold, to be quite honest. And then I started to feel pain in this side, which, as you guys might know, I broke that. I fractured a little bone in here a few months back. And there's a tumor in this thumb, and I had been warned to be very careful of that thumb, because if I get in an impact and that breaks, it will be very difficult to repair. And of course, I wasn't thinking about that. And I had a pain out through my wrist, up my left arm, and like here at the back, like the underside of my traps. And I just put it down to like, oh, it's just like, you know, stiffness from overreaching or whatever. Then the other pain started hitting as we were heading back to the house, and you guys can't see it, but I've got a big fucking lump on the side of my left knee, and above my left knee, a massive, not very dark yet, but about the size of the palm of your hand, a big bruise here on my leg. And I was kind of thinking, like, how did I get hurt on that side, but not on the side that I actually fell down on? And I was like, this leg, the right leg, that the whole bike was down on, there's no pain whatsoever. None whatsoever. Maybe a tiny bit in my ankle where my foot got stuck under the peg for like a split second. And it's fine now. Like, I don't feel, now my whole body's stiff because, you know, it's just the way it is. It just happened. But I was kind of stiff anyway. But I was like, how am I so banged up on this side when it was this side that hit the ground? And I was like, it made no sense. And I even rode back down there this morning to kind of look around and like figure out what had happened. So it was a mixture of things. It was probably that I gave it a bit too much gas, because I'm not used to that bike at all. Gave it a bit too much gas, and it's not actually my bike, I should say. It's my friend's bike, but it was fine. Bike was fine. It was a mixture. I reckon giving it a bit too much gas maybe made it squirrel a bit, and that's why I grabbed the front brake so hard, and it just fucking went down. But when I spoke to my friend afterwards, he was like, you weren't locked enough to the right. He reckons I wasn't locked enough to the right for it to be enough to make the front dip down like it would in a U-turn. He was like, there's no way you were that locked in. And I was dragging the back brake. So he's like, realistically, the fact that you fell off like that made no sense. And that's what prompted me to go back and have a look. So I went back and had a look. Basically, as I mentioned, it's kind of downhill, and right at the corner is where all of the mud from under the grass on that little V-turn rolled out onto the street. And when I rode over it this morning at about maybe 20 kilometers per hour, I felt a little bit of give in the front wheel just as I went over that patch. So I was like, yeah, obviously it's a mixture of all those three things. But yeah, he was like, I was dragging the back brake as I was going around the corner, which would be enough to stabilize the whole bike at that point. But it was my own brain that reacted, and I grabbed a handful of the front brake. It's this stupid fucking thing. And I don't care how long you've been riding. If you ask any rider and they tell you that they don't grab the front brake out of fear sometimes, they're fucking lying. My trainer has been a trainer for about 30 years. He does it. His brother's been a trainer for about 30 years. He does it. My brother's been riding since I was a baby. He does it. Everybody says it. They're like, oh, you just freak out and you naturally go for it. Doesn't mean that you actually grab it, I will say, but you do go for it. Like it's like a muscle response. Now I don't know if I actually did grab a handful of the front brake. I think I did. But I was definitely dragging the back brake because I was literally doing that to practice the turn. So yeah, it's a whole mixture of shit. I reckon if the road wasn't slick, I probably wouldn't have come off. But there's a good chance I still would have dropped the bike though, because of the fact that I likely grabbed the front. I think I did grab the front brake, which is too late now. Nothing I can do about it now. But now I'm more aware of it for when I go. I'm going to go practice again today in the rain. I don't care. It's not going to put me down. But I'm going to be more careful this time. And I think practicing in the dark was not the best idea. It seemed like a good idea last night. But you know, it is what it is. We'll get there. Send out Q. Good to see you, my friend. Karan, I hope you're doing well, man. Working 14-hour days. Oh, man. Well, I hope you enjoy what you can be here for. It's great to see you, my friend. So yeah, that's how it came off. But anyway, the pain on the left-hand side of my body, I couldn't figure out what was the cause of all this fucking bruising. So I rang him this morning. I was like, hey, so when I came off the bike last night, did you see anything happen that would explain why I'm all bruised up on the left-hand side? And he was like, is it the left hand inside or the left hand outside? I was like, left hand inside. So like my inner leg and my left wrist. He said the left wrist was probably from when I tipped over. Simple. That happens. And the inner thigh, he said that when I tipped over, the back end of the bike went away from me. But because I was I was counter leaning against the turn, which you're supposed to do. I was leaning against it, which you're supposed to do at low speed, obviously. Because, yeah, anyway. So I was leaning away from the bike when the bike went under. And he said my back went back like this. My left leg came up. I had my hand on the bars the whole time. I didn't let go. My left leg came up and then slapped into the tank as I went down. And so that completely explained it. And then I checked the bike this morning after I got back from the ride, and I noticed there was just a little scratch on the tank from where my belt had come right across the tank, which completely correlates with what he said. So that explains the bruises. Now, biggest problem is it is not a sports bike. It's like an upright, naked sports bike kind of thing. It's like a bit of a hodgepodge bike. But where the tank is, I love it. I love a high profile tank. Like even on a cruiser, like that's why I used to love riding the bigger Viragos, because the tank is right in front of you. I really like that. But on this bike, your leg digs into the subframe under the tank, and it's like, it's going to hurt so bad when I'm practicing later, but I have to practice. Oh, I messed up the muffler too. No, actually, that's not quite right. It was already scratched to shit. Because he had taken it off an old bike that he crashed while he was racing, and the muffler was all scratched up. I just made it worse. And he was cool about it. He was like, dude, it was all scratched up anyway. I've had one situation ever where I stupidly, and I fully accept my own stupidity in this one. I was riding in shorts. I know. Your skin versus the road's always going to win. What's it they say? Dress for the slide and not for the ride. But yeah, so I was riding along shorts, and the excuse that you rationalize to yourself is, I'm literally going one block away. And that is true. I was literally riding from where my block is right over to the other block to fill up the tank for a ride later in the day and to get some stuff in the shop. And I didn't crash. But what I did do was I practiced a few U-turns. I threw a few in there while I was on my way home, and I dropped my leg. The reason I dropped my leg intentionally, I literally did it intentionally. I have no problem admitting when I do something stupid on a bike. But I put my leg down as I was walking through the very low turn. The reason that I did that was because I wanted to find the precise bite point of the clutch release, because I just changed the clutch cable. So I wanted to find exactly where it was so I could hit them perfectly every time. And yeah, forgot I was wearing shorts basically. A bollock came out the left-hand side of the shorts onto the seat, which I'll get back to that. Remember that part. One of my testicles came out the left-hand side of my shorts onto the seat and became trapped between my shorts and my leg by the skin. So you couldn't really feel it because the actual bollock was out. So I couldn't really feel it. And as I was slowly walking myself through the turn, my leg touched the muffler, which was hot at that point. Even though I hadn't ridden that far, it was still pretty hot. And I went like, fuck, like that. And I sat back up on the bike upon my testicle. And I thought I was going to get sick all over the tank. If you are a person who has a pair of testicles, you will know that getting hit in them or accidentally squeezing them, something like that, is going to hurt. And it's going to make you feel like you want to vomit, right? But yeah, so needless to say, I no longer ride in my shorts. There was one time ever since then that I rode in my shorts. I lost a bet. I'm not going to get into the nature of the bet. I should have never been involved in this bet because I had no way of winning that bet, but I took it anyway. And because I lost, I had to get my gentleman's region, my not the banana with the oranges waxed. And it was a dare. It was not a dare. It was a bet. It may as well have been a dare because I had no way of winning that bet. Anyway, so I just had to take the lads out, and the guy who I lost the bet to's girlfriend is a beautician. She's used to doing this kind of stuff. Put the hot wax on my bits, and that was relatively uncomfortable. And I'm not exactly I'm not a husky. I'm not covered in I haven't got like a thick downy fuzz all over me, but it still hurt. And I was like, ah! And it burnt so bad. That was the worst part, the burning sensation. So I literally rode down the road with my balls hanging out to try to cool them down in the rain. It didn't work. I just ended up wet and sore. So yeah, anyway, riding in shorts is definitely not a good idea. I see certain people around this area, Uber Eats riders, riding in sandals or like flip-flops. Now that is another level of stupid. If you want to know why it's another level of stupid, look into what happens when you have an incident while riding in sandals. It is not fun. So yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't do that. Like, I know I should like not ride in shorts or t-shirts. You shouldn't. Like, I mean, you definitely shouldn't. But yeah, riding in sandals is fucking such a terrible idea. Under the blood red sky, good to see you. Makara says, come on home, Irish demon. Come on home. Get on home. 3 more weeks, my friend. 3 more weeks. And I'm actually really excited. I have to lock down for 5 days. But, you know, it is what it is. At least I'll be home. My brother is going to bring my bike from my parents' house to where we're going to be staying at so I can do some work on it while I'm in lockdown. And then once I'm out, I'll be able to go for nice long rides. And it's going to be good to be able to go ride with the club again. I haven't ridden with them for over 5 years. So being able to go out on long rides again with a whole bunch of awesome people is just going to be excellent. And I'll be able to get really cool footage and all that kind of stuff. Dumb Jezza says, I know a guy who lost a toe doing that. I am definitely never doing that. That's yeah. Same goes for gloves. I never now ride without gloves after nearly losing that finger. Not a good idea. Glober Mom says, my husband rode in full dress leathers and he has gone down on a motorcycle, screwed up his legs because of it. I'm sorry to hear that. The full leathers can be fantastic. Like when you look at, I watch MotoGP. I love MotoGP. Yeah, so seeing people go down in that and absorbing it really well is one thing, but yeah, it's not a foolproof way. And I think that I've seen that a lot, where people seem to think that because they're wearing all the gear all the time, that they can take more risks. Definitely not a good idea. Definitely not a good idea. But you know, unfortunately, there is that risk. There's always that risk that something can go wrong. Archangel 3 says, I did that 3 times because it was needed. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that is, you make a really good point there. Like, there are times where you just have to jump on the bike and go for whatever reason it may be. Like, for example, there was one situation recently where I just had to jump on and go. I don't think it was nothing like overly urgent, but it was something that needed to be addressed right then, right there. And I was in the garage, and Jen called me for something at work. Something happened at work. I don't know what it was. I can't remember what it was. Some shit always happens there. And I just jumped in the bike and went, and I just had like jeans, a hoodie, and a helmet, no gloves, no boots either, just like shoes or whatever. And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you just have to go for whatever the reason may be. But in where you can avoid it, it's best to avoid it. What was that? No need to slow mode the chat. I do need to slow mode the chat a lot because I find it really hard to keep up with it. Under the Blood Red Sky says, great stuff. I'm so excited, man. Archangel says, I'm not a troll. I never said you were. I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. Real Signa says, no question, all dress gear is smart. It is smart, but it's not always really practical. It depends on where you live as well. That's a huge part of it. Like, over here in the summer when you're riding, it is really hard to ride in full gear. It really, really, really is. I don't like riding in the deep summer here because it's just too hot to ride. Like 45 degrees Celsius it's so tough to ride. Especially with a jacket on. I never ride, well, I try not to ride without a jacket or the Kevlar shirt or something like that, but riding with a heavy jacket, heavy boots, heavy pants, helmet, gloves in the hot weather, oh, it's fucking rough. Myself and my friend Marnie went for a ride in the middle of December, which is really, 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 really hot. And we rode to the next suburb and we're like, fuck this, we gotta go back. It's too hot. It was awful. But yeah, you know, the more safety precautions you can take definitely is smarter. But again, it's not always practical. And you kind of have to balance practicality with safety, or practicality with comfort sometimes as well is a part of it. And at the end of the day, right, like the argument that I hear from friends, like if you're wearing a pair of tracksuit pants or shorts on a motorbike and you come off at 20 miles an hour, you'll probably be okay. You might have a bit of road rash and a torn pants, some cuts, some bruises. If you come off at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour in tracksuit pants short, you're fucked. Like, you're going to get skinned alive. If you come off a motorbike at that same speed in jeans, it's not going to give you that much more protection, truthfully. You might think it would, but it really isn't. I think for me, the best middle ground that I have found to protect myself and still be comfortable and be able to go into a store without lugging around a load of gear is Kevlar gear. Kevlar gear seems to be the best option for me anyway. So what I tend to wear is I generally wear my heavy boots because I wear them anyway, so I don't really mind wearing them. The Kevlar jeans, which are not as comfortable as regular jeans, but they're still way more comfortable than like heavy leathers or riding gear. The Kevlar shirt with shoulder, elbow, and spine padding. And then obviously my gloves are leather with Kevlar inside, and my helmet, obviously Kevlar as well. So I tend to kind of like balance them out. If I'm going for a very long distance ride and it's like not hot, then I tend to just wear full gear, everything. But yeah, it's a really good point. There's like it's balancing it. That's the thing. Thanks, Fred. Yeah, no, I'm fine, man. It was super, super, super low speed. So I'm like, I'm just glad it happened at low speed. And the area we were riding around, you can't really go faster than 40 or 50 kilometers per hour anyway. So there should be no excuse for a high speed crash in that scenario. Real Cygnus says it shouldn't even be a choice. You won't be needing your organs when dead. I'm not sure what that's in response to. See, I get this argument a lot from non-riders, and they go, "Oh, I hate motorbikes. They're so unsafe." And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. I hear you. Like, they're not the safest thing in the world. Neither are bicycles. Neither is mountain biking. Neither is skydiving. Neither is fucking bungee jumping. Or, you know, there's so many activities that you could do that are detrimental to your health if they go wrong. That is true. Likewise, driving a car can be dangerous for sure, but there are a lot of safety features in a car that will generally lessen the chances of you being badly injured or killed, right? That we all accept that, and we all accept as motorcyclists that when we are on a bike, that you are in more danger. You're way more likely to be injured or killed in an incident, in an accident. We absolutely accept that. And you can lessen those effects to some extent by, you know, wearing better gear and things like that, for sure. But the reality is motorcycling is always going to be dangerous. Riding a bicycle, riding a moped, riding a Harley, it's a lot of similarities across those things. I think knowing how to ride properly, how to ride safely, not speeding is the biggest thing, man. Like I've seen a few of my mates crash. And like bad crashes, and it's almost always been because of speed or stupid riding. And if you go and have a look at like bad motorbike crashes on YouTube and stuff like that, you will find, if you're a rider, you'll be able to see the things. A lot of it is down to rider error. We can blame drivers all day long. A lot of motorcyclists love to just blame drivers for all their woes. But the reality is, in a lot of these scenarios, it is actually the rider who is responsible for a lot of these accidents. And that is true. That is absolutely true. I've seen so many of those. So if you know how to ride properly, you're going to negate those risks quite a bit. And if you don't speed, I don't speed. I have no interest in going fast. Really don't. That's why I've got an LS 650 back home. If I wanted to go fast, I'd buy an R1 or a fucking Gixxer or something. I don't need the speed. I like the cruise, man. So yeah, I've got no interest in speed. Broman Legion says, speaking of vehicle accidents. Now, Broman Legion, if you don't know who that is, then forget about it. Broman Legion and myself started, I think, around the same time, and you should definitely check out his channel. Broman, put a link to your channel down below. We started around the same time-ish, and we always chat. I'm terrible for getting back to people, by the way, as everyone knows at this point. But he was in a pretty nasty crash last week, was it, Broman? Last week or the week before, with his wife and kids. Thankfully, everybody came out of it relatively unscathed, a few scratches and bruises, but man, was it bad. Like, I mean, again, a lot of this comes down to stupid drivers, man. In that case, a lady ran a stop sign or a red light. Was it a stop sign or a red light? I think it was a stop sign. Ran a stop sign and just fucking mangled their car. Lucky to come out of it unscathed. I'm so happy you guys are all okay, but scary, scary shit. I've been in a couple of car accidents, but never any like super high speed or like really, really, really bad ones. Ones that have written off cars, but not like really, really bad. Yeah, she ran a stop sign. Like, that's just silly, so unavoidable. So avoidable, I should say. That kind of stuff really pisses me off. Heachil says R6 is just as good as an R1 if you're sane. Look, I tend to agree with you there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like fast bikes, and I do from time to time like giving it a bit of a brap, but when it comes to like high speed and I see like high speed riding, it does freak me out actually sometimes, because I'm like, nah. Like, there's one guy that I came across on YouTube the other day, and he was riding along. He was racing. he was on a Hayabusa, I think it was, and he was racing against a guy in a Ferrari, and they were hitting speeds of like 280 kilometers per hour, and he was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. And I just remember looking at it thinking, like, if you come off at that speed or hit the back of a car or tractor or some shit or a wall, you got no chance at that point. Like, realistically, if he had like full gear on, he might have some chance, but like still at that speed on something that isn't a racetrack with no ambulance on standby or anything like that is, in my opinion, it's stupid. It gives riders a bad name. It gives us a bad look. Yeah, it was just that was scary shit, man. And I see it a lot when I'm out on the road. I see a lot of riders just riding really stupidly. And then when a lot of these guys get into accidents, you can see why. You know, so a lot of the time it's not your fault. Like, I mean, I've had situations where I've been riding along and somebody pulled out in front of me. And, you know, you slam on and you kind of like, you look at them and you go like, dude, you could kill me. Do you realize that? Not just me, but a cyclist or a pedestrian. You just pull out. Like, look where you're fucking going, man. And then I've seen scenarios where motorcyclists are, now it depends on where you live. The laws are different everywhere, but safety's still the same, right? So when you see people weaving in and out of traffic, that's okay to some extent once it's done safely. But I saw one video where a guy is weaving in and out of traffic. He comes shooting up through the middle of moving traffic. So proper lane splitting, not just filtering, like highway speed lane splitting. And a guy changed lane and nearly hit him. And the guy's like busting his windows and shit. I'm like, dude, you cut him off. You went right up the middle when you weren't supposed to. And it's just stupid shit. Just stupid shit. And then they blame the driver. It wasn't the fucking driver's fault. He didn't expect a guy to pass him at twice the fucking speed limit. So, yeah, I think a lot of riders need to get rid of the old... some riders that I know have, like, real chips on their shoulder. And when we're out riding, they're, like, fucking turning around, flipping everyone off. I'm like, that's kind of your fault. You know what I mean? So... But you do meet the anti-motorcycle car drivers, too, though. You see both worlds out there. A lot of people are anti-bike, like, big time. And they see you lane... Not splitting, but filtering, where traffic is stopped... and you go up the middle. You are allowed to do that in Western Australia. There are certain parameters. For example, all vehicles must be stopped, as far as I'm aware. You're not now allowed to filter past a bus or a truck because they can't see you, and that's fair enough. But then when I'm riding, I've found times where I'm, you know, going up through the middle, which I've got the right to do. And yeah, somebody didn't like that I was allowed to do that and pulled right into the middle of two lanes. And he started shouting at me. I was like, what's your fucking deal? What's the problem? I'm allowed to filter. So I jumped off the bike. I went over, said, dude, what's the problem? I'm allowed to filter. He's like, no, you're fucking not. It's against the law. I'm like, it's literally not against the law. You need to look up the law. If traffic is moving, then it is, but traffic is stopped. So I'm allowed to. And I was like, you realize that because you had the wrong opinion of the law, that you have broken the law in multiple ways. You pulled out in front of me. You pulled halfway into another lane without indicating. You could have injured me. You could have injured yourself. You could have injured the person in that car. All because you didn't know the law. And like, he was like, you shouldn't be fucking doing it, Mac. I'm like, again, you almost hurt me and other people. And you broke the rules of the road multiple times. Because you thought I broke the rules of the road when I didn't. Do you not see the problems here? And then he just put up his window and drove away. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. So yeah, it's a lot of people are not bike aware. They don't know the rules of the road. They shouldn't be on the road. A lot of people, especially here. Holy shit, man. Like, I've seen some bad driving in Ireland, don't get me wrong, and other parts of the world for sure. But here in Western Australia, in Perth, mother of God, these people can't drive, man. They are like, I'm sorry. People are either outrageously aggressive, far beyond their abilities, or ridiculously overcautious, like to the point where they just fucking are doing like 50 kilometers per hour in an 80 and stuff like that, you know? Oh man, Brendan says, pulled over a guy riding in thongs in a bathrobe whilst drunk once. Was very interesting conversation. Holy shit, man. When I worked in the courts, I used to see a fair few motorbike related stuff, and there was one guy going up Great Eastern Highway here in Perth, and he was on the motorcycle And he was registered and licensed to ride that motorcycle. He was in all the right gear. He wasn't intoxicated, but he was facing the wrong way. So he was driving in that direction, but his whole body was looking the other way and he had his hands behind him. So he was doing like a stunt or whatever. And he got pulled over and he got issued an infringement for, I would imagine, driving without due care and attention or something to that effect anyway. And when it got into court, the magistrate looked at it and he was like, hold on. So he's like, I'm confused. Are you telling me that he was on the motorcycle driving in the wrong direction? So he was driving against the flow of traffic. He's like, no. He was driving in the right direction, but he was facing the wrong way. And I remember seeing the magistrate, and I was laughing because I knew what he meant because I saw the picture. I remember the magistrate looking at and he was like, what? He was like, I don't understand. He's like, I'm not getting this. He was like, I don't ride, so I'm not getting this. And he was like, okay. He's like, so he was on the motorcycle and the motorcycle was going in this direction, but he was facing the other way. And he's like, so he was looking around behind him. He was like, technically no and yes at the same time. And he was like, you're gonna have to illustrate this for me because I don't understand. And so the sergeant was like, okay, imagine this chair is the motorcycle. And he put the water bottle in front of him, and this is the front of the bike. The driver was facing the other way with his hands behind his back, riding the bike backwards. And the magistrate was like, okay, now I get it. And it got to the point where he actually had to Google and show the magistrate the picture because he couldn't see it before the trial. He couldn't see the actual picture before the trial or whatever. That was really funny. It was really, really funny. And he did end up, I think he just gave him a fine. I don't think he lost his license or anything, but he ended up getting a fine and was told to kind of cop himself on or whatever. So Mr. Andret says, lane splitting is illegal here. Still see it often though, even on highways at 110 kilometers per hour. Yeah, I mean, it is, like, as far as I'm aware, for Western Australia, it's illegal to lane split, which is where traffic is in motion. But it's not illegal to filter when traffic is stopped. I'm not sure if it's the same where you are. It is definitely different from state to state as well in the US. In the UK, it's legal to filter while traffic is moving below a certain limit within certain boundaries and things like that. There's weird rules there. In Ireland, I think it's just legal to filter like it is here. And I think that's about it. Commander Darklight, good to see you, my friend, says drivers here in Sydney are rubbish too, same as Perth, either overconfident or way too cautious. Yeah, it seems to be a common enough trend here, for sure. I think the reason Irish drivers are better ultimately is because we're used to driving in less than ideal conditions and very overcrowded, unideal conditions. So I think people just develop a better driving style maybe or something like that. Can't legally split in New York or even filter. Wow. Damn, that must get really fucking irritating. Like filtering, I mean, you know, when traffic is stopped, it can still be dangerous. Like, you know, I've seen a few scenarios where, like, you know, people have opened doors or people have like ran in between traffic or tried to change lane and cut a biker off, and then the biker gets stuck there and he can't get back into lanes. I mean, some of those things have happened to me. So, I mean, it's not the safest thing. It's certainly not as safe, I would say, as sitting in the right position behind the car. But definitely when you come to the lights on a bike and there's a car in front of you, you know, you're supposed to be in a position where the person in the car in front can see you. But one of the biggest things, and this has happened to me once before, it's happened to friends many times, is the car behind is not paying attention and they go up the back of you, which is really dangerous on a motorbike. So there are arguments that would suggest that filtering is safer in that respect. And I can see that. I think definitely being prepared for something to come from behind you, monitoring how fast they're approaching you so that you can run up the inside if you have to, is probably the safest option. But staying that concentrated constantly is exhausting, but it's necessary too, right? Archangel says, here in Pennsylvania, good luck lane splitting or riding four-wheelers on the road now. Even side-by-sides are getting punished, and rightfully so. Yeah, I mean, side-by-side riding is dangerous. I mean, look, if you get cleaned up by something, you're going to take the guy out next to you. So whenever we go on group rides, we always ride in staggered formation in the same lane. So, like, The rider in front will always kind of sit to the right hand side of the lane because we drive on the left, so it's the dominant position. The next rider will be offset to the left, and so on and so forth down the line. I have my issues with that though as a rider, because when you're riding solo, you have to move within your lane constantly, because you need to stick into the dominant position. But if there's something coming the other way, then you go over to the left and back over. You never sit in the middle because of the oil trap. So there's kind of like rules there, but in a group ride, it makes sense to stagger out a little bit. But staggered is the way to go, I think. It's actually more fun, in my opinion. I hate being constantly sat next to somebody. Like back in the day when I used to ride back home, we would ride in groups of two, and it was kind of like, it was just uncomfortable, really, because any mistake, you're done for. So at least with staggered, you've, instead of one bike length, you've got like 4 or 5 bike lengths now, and it's much more safe. Yeah, Archangel, I agree with you. A lot of these guys that like have a background in, especially like in racing or like off-roading and stuff, and then they go out on the road and they just act like complete dickheads. But yeah, so it was a pretty crazy night last night. And then so the second part is the Bible part of it, and why I need to get a Bible. So that was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment about the motorcycle crash with the Bible. The reason I need a Bible is I've been studying a lot of religious history and stuff like that, because I'm going to start making videos about that too. And so yeah, I need to start actually reading it. So I had an idea for maybe a live stream series I could do, or something like that, where I literally read through the Bible and just pick out the ridiculous shit out of it live and just kind of figure it out. And it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to do it and to break it down. I've had a look at a few sections of it that I'm like, the contradictions in this thing are insane, but you know. But anyway, lads and lassies, that was the story for today. Just said I'd update you, let you know that I was okay. But it, you know, look, riding a bike is definitely not the safest thing you can do in the world. And if you want to stay safe forever, stay home, wrap yourself in bubble wrap, and do that. On the other side of that is being responsible too, right? I'm not saying that because some things are dangerous that you should do everything dangerously. Absolutely not. If you're going out there riding on the roads, you need to respect yourself and you need to respect others too. And that is important. And I know a lot of people find a lot of fun in riding dangerously and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be any fun for your family if you're not around anymore, or if you're horribly disabled, or if you do that to somebody else. And that's the reality. So, you know, be safe, whether you're in a car or a bike. If you're in a car, be bike aware. Just be bike aware. Even if they're doing something stupid. Because you see that a lot, where a biker's doing something stupid in a video and then a driver decides to like whip in front of them or brake check them to teach them a lesson. That's not the way to do it, because you're going to kill them and then it's going to be on you, or you're going to hurt yourself, even more, arguably more importantly to you anyway. Do I have a bubble wrap merch store link? Not yet, but I will. I'll make some bubble wrap gloves. But yeah, so that's the reality of it. Just be bike aware, be aware of other cars, be car aware, to be just be aware. Be aware. And if you are on a motorcycle, remember your own responsibility for your safety too. If you're whipping along at 50% higher than the speed limit and you're going in and out of traffic and someone cuts you off, it may just be your fault for acting like a dickhead and not giving them time to react properly, or doing something that nobody's expecting to happen. So just be reasonable. That's all I can say. You can still go out there and have a lot of fun, but just be careful, be reasonable. Remember that other person is somebody's, you know, wife or husband or girlfriend or boyfriend and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Brendan says, I always thought that a car or bike is a weapon and you should treat it as such. I actually fully agree. Same way as you don't point a gun, what you're not prepared to destroy, much the same with a car or a motorcycle. Don't ride it in a way that you can potentially do a lot of damage. The reality that, of riding a motorcycle or driving a car or a bus or a train or a truck or an airplane is that if it hits something, it's probably going to damage something or it could hurt somebody. We all accept that responsibility when we drive or ride or whatever the case may be. So just remember that when you go out in your car or your bike or whatever. Dumb Jezza says, I saw a guy reading a newspaper while driving on the motorway. I saw a girl yesterday, and I'm not being sexualist here. The reality, you see it a lot more as a motorcyclist than you do in your car, is the most dangerous drivers that I have come across on the roads over here in Australia anyway, is young women. I'm sorry if that sounds sexualist, but it's the truth. I have had more close calls with young women on their phones than anything else in all the years riding. And that's the truth. I'm sorry if that offends anybody. Actually, I'm not sorry if that offends anybody. That's my experience. Your experience might be totally different. Yours might be old people or dudes with orange hair. My experience is that I've been nearly hit or killed by more young women on their phones than anything else. And yesterday, one went past me and she kept getting like really close to the back of me, and I just went like that, like fucking get back, like you're going to hit the back of me. And she had no idea what was going on. And when she passed me, she was holding her phone and she was like, as she was driving along at 70, 80 kilometers per hour. That's the reality of it. She was like that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? And yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's literally just the way it is. Under Blood Red Sky, thank you for your super chat earlier. I forgot to mention that. It says, can I promote my channel, please? Under the Blood Red Sky G7. Absolutely. Drop a link in there, my friend, and I'd be delighted for people to go check that out. And definitely go check out Roman Legion as well. He's one of the funniest people. We're going to be working on a few things together. And I'm really excited for it. Brendan says, that's true, Demon. I issued more fines to young women than men for dumber stuff, ironically. Yeah, I gotta say, my experience as well in court, in traffic court, has been a lot of young women on their phones. And I see it all the time on the road now. I mean, look, I'm not perfect. I've always got my phone near me. I use it all the time at home. I do not use it while I drive under any circumstances because I have seen the horrors. I'm not sure where you serve, Brendan, but in Western Australia, a couple of years ago when I was working in the courts, there was a young Irish girl was on trial because she was involved in an accident that killed her friend, the passenger in the car, and it was alleged that she was texting while driving, and it was a very high-speed accident. And it was a hung jury the first time, then she went back the second time and she got jailed for it. I believe she's still in jail. And then she'll obviously be most likely sent back to Ireland afterwards. I don't think she wants to stay here anyway. But, and yeah, I mean, that's the sad reality. You've seen it in uniform. I have too. We've seen, and I'm sure some of you folks out there watching have seen my brother as well. He was a firefighter and then a paramedic. He's still a paramedic. We've seen the horrors that happen on the road firsthand multiple times, and it is not pretty. Those faces come back to you. They come back. You know what I'm talking about, Brendan. They visit you sometimes. That's the reality of it. You never, ever, ever, ever forget those faces. Yeah, so just fucking be careful, guys. It only takes, and some things are unavoidable. That's the reality of life. And we need to remember that too and not be afraid of every little thing. The reality is that, that picture I've got on the wall right there could fall in such a way that it breaks and next thing I know, I'm bled out. It's unlikely, but it could happen. And that's the reality. Some things are unavoidable on a motorcycle. You're out, some guy comes along the wrong side of the road at 100 miles an hour, hits you, game over. That's the reality of life. You could be walking along the footpath or the sidewalk. Somebody could go off the road, hit you, you're done. And that's the reality. Take all the precautions you can, is my advice. And be reasonable. And, that's just the way, that's the way she goes. Let me see here. Oh, Broman's link to his channel is there. Let me pin that so you guys can check that out. Brendan says, lucky enough to not see anyone dead, but always dreaded the day I did. I served in Vic, but left due to personal reasons. Yeah, it's I know Vic Rhodes had something out recently about mobile phone use. I can't remember what it was, but it was. I remember seeing it and going, "Oh, that's really good. I got to share that." But I'm banned on Facebook again. Hey, Saber Cat, good to see you, my love. I'm doing really, really good. I'm doing much, much better. I was a little bit sick, and then I fell off my motorbike last night, but I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Yeah, doing really, really good. How's the book coming along? This young lady is writing a book, writing a kind of an audio book at the moment that I am happy to take part in, and I'm excited to do it. I haven't gotten around to doing much of it yet, because I've just been so busy with moving back to Ireland and stuff. Oh, that's Blood Red Skies link. Oh, there you go. Okay, now we're getting places. Oh, that's what it was, Brendan. There's cameras now on overpasses and stuff that pick up on mobile phone use. So it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Because it's my pet peeve. Not only is it extremely dangerous, it's really, really, really irritating when the person in front of you doesn't go because they're on their phone. It is so annoying. It's one of the most irritating things. And then somebody beeps, they panic, they take off, they could hit somebody. And that's how it all gets to where it goes. But yeah, this young one yesterday rode past. I was going along, she drove past me, she's like, and I was like, beep, 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 beep. And she was like, and she kept, I'm like, are you shitting me? But every time I looked in the rearview mirror, she was doing something. She was either on her phone, she was like texting with two hands and like having to keep readjusting the car. She was doing her eyebrows at one point. She was messing with her hair. Concentrate. You're going to fucking kill somebody. Anyway, lads and lassies, I have got to go because, like, as always, I've got a lot of work to do. We're still packing, getting things ready, filming some stuff, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, lads and lassies, thank you for joining me. It was a lot of fun. We're going to start this Bible business soon. I'm going to go and maybe buy a Bible today because I'd like to have like a physical one to be able to play around with. And yeah, that'll be a bit of fun and we'll see how we go. But anyway, thank you so much. I will catch you all later. I might do a live stream tonight. I'm hoping maybe if JL is free to get him on for a live stream. And yeah, we'll get there eventually. Lads and lassies, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there if you're riding or driving or walking or crawling or rolling, whatever you may be doing. Sláinte.